Hi. In this screencast, I want to talk to you about something that's actually very, very important. It's called the tragedy of the commons. And it's basically a concept that's related to human psychology and economic theory. And it's actually probably one of the most important things that any member of modern society should know about. And sadly, most people don't know about it. And it's the understanding of this concept of the tragedy of the commons is really the only way that humanity can possibly escape from a really horrible fate that awaits us if we keep acting the way we're acting. And so I want you to be people who are part of the solution to the problem and champions of the world. In order to do that, you must understand the tragedy of the commons. And it's not that hard of a concept to wrap your head around. So let's get on with it. So the tragedy of the commons was first proposed a little over 100 years ago, really, by a man in England, but it really became uh, widely known in certain academic communities by a piece written in 1968 by a man named Garrett Hardin. And basically, what he suggested was this. Uh, if you have a shared resource, which in Europe, like in England, they would call it the commons. It was like an area where everybody could graze their cows. So if you have a shared resource, a common, unfortunately, human beings are designed to act in their own personal interest, not in the interest of the overall world. And so what happens is because they look after their interest, they will always deplete a resource to their own disadvantage. But people will always do this unless some kind of intervention is imposed on them. So let's just work our heads through this a little bit here. All right. So let's just say this green area represents a commons area, a pasture land. And this pasture land can sustainably feed 18 cows, right? So we got 9 farmers. And each of these farmers can graze 2 cows on this. And we don't exceed carrying capacity. So since the grass grows back as fast or faster than the cows eat it, it's sustainable. These cows, we can have 18 cows here from now until the end of time. No problem. But human nature is such that one of these farmers is going to go, I graze 1 extra cow, I can have extra milk and extra cheese, and I can sell that and I can benefit from this. I can profit from this. I will be enriched by this behavior. So I'm going to do it. Now, this person gets immediate benefit and they tell themselves, it's just me. It's not that big of a deal. But look what happens. All the other 8 farmers look at this and they go, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it too. And so now instead of having 18 cows, we've got 27 cows, which is more than this pasture land can sustainably feed. And it's natural. I mean, like in that fishing game that I had you guys do, you're not going to sit back and let your friend win, at your own detriment. It's just not in human nature. We're not going to sit by and watch somebody overgraze this pasture land and then not turn around and do it ourselves. So if he's going to make a profit, I'm going to make a profit. That is human nature. And we have to accept that about ourselves or we're really doomed. Now, so what happens is the individuals in the short term, they profit, right? They hey, look at this. I have 3 cows instead of 2. But unfortunately, over time, everyone suffers. So the problem with the tragedy of the commons is it comes down to immediate benefit or profit to the individual is what is chosen, and what is not considered is the long-term suffering that's going to be caused to the larger community. And that's just how humans are. We think about ourselves. We have a hard time worrying about the rest of our community or about the future. And so what happens is now there's too many, 27 cows grazing where only 18 can be sustained. They overgraze the land. All the grass is gone, and there's nothing left to eat. Now, that took time. So they got the immediate benefit, but over time, everyone suffered. And then there's no grass left, so the cows die and the people die. All right, this is what we don't want to have happen. Okay, in the case of the world oceans, that's basically what's going on, right? People say, "Hey, the more fish I catch, the more money I make," and the whole world is going to suffer in the future as a result of this behavior. And if I see somebody else fishing more than me, I'm going to go out and fish more too because I'm not going to let him get away with it. I want to do it too. This is human nature, and it has to be taken into account in order to try to prevent these kind of negative consequences that are going to happen. So this slide pretty much gets into a little bit of the details of it, but basically what we're saying here is that we tend to make decisions on what's in our own best short-term interest, And we also act out of a belief that we don't want someone else to get a that we don't think other people are going to do the right thing, so we don't do it either, right? So if they're going to do it, I'm going to do it. And the problem is that it's all about short-term gain at the expense of long-term detriment. And people always do this. We see it again and again and again. We will overexploit a resource in order to have short-term gain, and we won't worry about the long-term consequences that are shared among everybody. So basically, here's what it comes down to, right? If there's a shared resource with limited capacity, it's always going to happen because people are motivated by profit. We want short-term gain. That we are built to do that genetically. Uh, but the overuse of that resource is not something that you as the individual are necessarily going to have the bear the full brunt of, right? It's going to be spread out over other people and over more time. And so since we're the harmful effects are shared, but the profit I get by exploiting is personal. This is why we end up in this problem. Okay. So and the thing is too is even if somebody wants to do the right thing, even if they want to act in the greater good, when they see other people not doing that or believe that other people aren't doing it, human nature is I don't want to get cheated, so I want to do the right thing, but nobody else is doing it, so why should I do it? I don't want to be the sucker. This is human. Look into your own heart, and you are just as guilty of doing this as simply every other human being on the planet. It is how we are designed through evolution. And by understanding that is the only way that we can possibly prevent the effects of this to damaging the world resources. So again, just the key takeaways from TOC, Tragedy of the Commons. The individual, and now that could be a person, that could be a corporation, it could be a country. The idea is that the individual benefits in the short term by over-exploitation of a resource. The problems caused by that over-exploitation are shared among many individuals, the whole community. Uh, and the benefit that the person gets is in the short term, it's now, and the problems tend to happen farther out in time, maybe not even in your lifetime, maybe in subsequent lifetimes. Well, we're not necessarily in like helpless here, right? So yeah, we have to understand that this is human nature, but here's what we can do. There's two main ways we can do it. One is through governmental oversight, and the other one is privatization of the resources. I know the second one might sound odd, but it actually has been shown to work. So here's the thing: since individuals, and again that means corporations too, they're always going to place their own short-term interests ahead of the long-term common good. One way of fixing it is to have the government step in and say, look, we're going to monitor this resource and we're going to determine how much we can access it without harming it. And then we're going to punish people if they overreach. And what that does is that makes over exploitation an immediate harm to yourself. And you don't want immediate harm to yourself. If you don't have the government oversight, people just don't worry about it. But if you say, hey, I'm going to fine you, I'm going to put you out of business, I'm going to put you in jail if you do this, then people go, maybe I better not do that. Right? That's human nature. It's genius. Okay. So, for instance, in the United States, you have this thing called the national forest. Okay, and they're controlled by the federal government. They basically say this is how many trees can be sustainably harvested. We won't let you harvest more than that. Hi, how soon does class start? I'm doing a screencast. Do I have a few more minutes? Okay, I'm gonna talk without my mask for a few minutes if you don't mind. Okay, so think of it this way. So if we have a government organization, here's what happens. Okay, here's what's sustainable, right? We got 18 cows on this pasture. Now here comes Charlie, and he's going to graze that 19th cow. Well, guess what happens? He gets fined. The cow gets taken away from him. Maybe gets put in prison. Everyone else sees that happen. They go, I'm not going to do that. That is one way of circumventing the tragedy of the commons. Now, another thing that's interesting is the tragedy of the commons is about the commons. It's not about private property. When people own the property, when it has a private ownership, it tends not to happen. People don't damage themselves. They'll if it's in their own interest to conserve, then they will. If everyone else is paying the price, they don't worry about it. But if they have to pay the price, they worry about it. It's been shown again and again. So look at this. Here's my 18 cows. This pasture can hold 18 cows. It can feed them sustainably, right? Well, what if we did this? What if we said, look, it's no longer a commons. You 9 farmers, this is your land. Okay, look, each of you gets 1/9 of it, and you get to graze your 2 cows on that 1/9 of it. There's enough land there to sustain your 2 cows. Well, you know what? You're not going to if you put that extra cow there, what happens is you end up going hungry and your friends don't. So you go, wait a second, I don't want to hurt my own self, so I'm not going to graze any more than 2 cows. This works. Okay, so and you can do this with governmentally owned properties, but people have a little bit of reluctance because they're afraid of handing it over to private individuals. But it is one method of avoiding this very, very normal human consequence called the tragedy of the commons. Thanks for watching, guys.